Of course, we were having a conversation right along, you know, and I was saying, I don't see any purpose in this, God. You know, I'm happy. There's no purpose in me being here. Why is this happening? And I didn't hear from God. So finally, when it really was bad, my legs were shaking uncontrollable, my teeth were chattering. I'd already written a letter on my phone. You know the notes part? Well, maybe you don't. But on one of these phones here, you can write on a note. And I wrote a letter to my family in case I didn't make it back. And I didn't realize that when you get on Facebook on this, and you say, my father, as Dina did, my father's lost, and you know, we need prayer. How many thousands of people can click into that all over the country? And that's what happened. Because hardly any time goes by somebody doesn't say, I was praying for you. And some of them I don't even know, because it went on their church prayer group, their prayer line. So the final thing I said, and this is what I want to get to, is I said, God, because I didn't think I was going to make it. It was very cold. And I said, God, you know in the Bible where you used to send angels to help people in need? I said, I could use a couple right now. Exact words I spoke. And I was laying on a big granite slab where I had fallen, and it was hard on my hips, so I would keep changing from side to side. You realize I was there for hours and hours. And when I switched over after praying that prayer, when I switched, I could see through that little hole. And lo and behold, about 3 mountain peaks away were 2 lights. I didn't know if they were car lights. I didn't know what they were. But I found out later they were those headlights. And 2 of those volunteers were making their way down the mountain, a long way from me, miles from me. But eventually, using my gun, which when I fired it, they said they knew I was alive. That was the first thing, because they didn't know if I was alive, I'd fallen. And so they kept coming down the mountain. When they got to the valley, they started walking away from me. And so I said, oh my goodness, they're going the wrong direction. What I didn't realize was when you fire a gun up there, you can't tell where it was fired from because it echoed all around that canyon. So then I picked up my little 30-30 shell and I whistled with it, SOS. Now I don't really know SOS, I couldn't do it today, but I knew it was like 3 short. Yeah. So I did that, and that was successful. And they heard that, and I saw the lights stop. Couldn't hear them, couldn't actually see people, just lights. And they stopped, and then they started walking toward me. And then, as they were walking toward me, I got the idea to use my cell phone to flash the picture. Flash. And when I flashed that lit up all those rocks around me. I couldn't believe it. It was dark. It was so dark, and it just lit everything up. And eventually they got to me. And I'm going to tell you something. When that first rescue person came over the hill, he came right straight over the cliff that was in front of me. I don't know how he managed that. When I saw him, I felt like a child. I just wanted to hold him. I wanted him to hold me. And I was next to tears, and I said, he had a big backpack. So I said, let me hold your hand. I mean, I was so shaken and so relieved. And that rescue worker, he just took me in his arms, laid me down, put one of those silver kind of sheets they do over fire people, you know. It raises your temperature. And he was in communication. And I remember when he said, we found him. And at the command center, it was announced, because all my family and church friends had come all those miles up into the mountain where the command center was. They were standing around, they were praying. And I know that Dina, somebody told me that my daughter Dina, when they said they found him, she just fell to her knees, you know, thanking the Lord. In all my life, there's been probably 5 times where I have had to wait on the Lord, not knowing what the outcome would be. And when I found this scripture, this I called to mind, and therefore I have hope. It's those times of Ebenezer. those times where they took the stone from the river and built a monument. And God said, this is so your children will remember. And it's these times in my life when I was called to the ministry, when this problem happened. I had been praying for 3 years. The last 3 years, I've been praying for an exit strategy for me. I've been 40 years at the same church, the church I started. And I needed an exit strategy because I felt like the church was not doing as well as it should be doing. I had lost, at 69, 68, you lose a lot of the energy you had when you were younger. And that's what was happening to me. And I could see the church slightly dwindling. And I didn't want to see that happen. So I started praying to the Lord, give me an exit strategy. Show me what I'm to do now. And I prayed that prayer for 3 years. And not once did I get any kind of an answer. And I was concerned about it. But I didn't want to take a step ahead of God. And I didn't want to lag behind him. I wanted to stay in his will. And I figured if he was not going to give me an exit strategy as I refer to it, if he was not going to lead me specifically in what I was to do, and I just had to keep doing what I was doing. I get a telephone call about 6 months ago. A young man wants to come see me. He's the youth pastor of our neighboring town, a church of 800 people. I said, come on over. Came over. He said, I'm looking for an opportunity to become a senior pastor. And I think it would be good. I've heard that you're looking to make a change. I think it would be good if we worked together and you mentored me for a year, and then I would become a senior pastor, and maybe you could be a senior help pastor, or maybe you could lead whatever your plan is. I'm just roughly telling you how God dramatically answered that prayer after 3 years. But it took a long time. So I talked to the district superintendent, we talked to his 2 pastors, he has 2 pastors, talked to my church board. Everybody just believed it was the movement of God. This man's only about 30 years old. He has a wife and a little child. And so the message I want to leave with you today is that no matter how long it takes, whether you're up on a mountain for 8 hours in cold weather and wondering if you're going to live, or whether you wonder how you're going to become a minister because you didn't do very well in school, whatever it is, we need to learn to wait on the Lord. And then when we wait and we have that answer, there is such a wonderful freedom, such a blessed freedom. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. It's a matter of waiting. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will what? Wait for him. Don't get ahead of God. Don't fall behind God. Whatever his will is, whether it's retirement, like it is for me right now. And ultimately, I don't believe any minister should retire. I believe there's always a place to continue to serve and continue to be helpful. When you think of how God has mentored me for all those years, since I was 20 years old, in the call to ministry, and how he has taught me through experience, through his word, and sharing his word, just to retire and go play golf or something, it's just insane in my mind. Because God can use that, like using me with this young man. I can't think of a better strategy for a church where you've had a pastor for 40 years. Most churches, the statistics are there. Most churches, if you've had a pastor who's been there a long time, the next guy who comes in, he doesn't last. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions. But generally speaking, they don't last. I told my congregation the Sunday I announced Brian and the fact that we were going to join together, I told them, I said, I want you to repeat after me. God hates comparisons. I had the whole congregation do it. I said, I will now repeat that after me. God hates comparisons. Because here's the thing. When Brian comes in and he just preached for me this last Sunday, I sent a text message to about 6 people in my church. 6 people that I knew would give me kind of a different opinion. I asked, how was the music, how was the preaching, how was the spirit? And I got really good responses. But the thing is that in coming together like that, and this young man, it's amazing how God worked that out.